Right, thank you. It's great to be here. So I run a little consultancy called Courtland Brooks, and we help internet dating companies grow. We're very myopic to the dating industry. Been working with the industry now for 20 years, and I work with my wife. Sometimes it can work very well. We do strategy, biz dev, and marketing, and media relations for the dating industry. We also run a little site called Online Personals Watch, which is where we look at the news every day, and we summarize the news for the industry executives to help them hopefully make better decisions and make more money. Very myopic to the dating industry. So over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about love and behavior, more specifically about, I'm going to give you an overview of the internet dating industry, some of the challenges that we have, and define behavioral economics, and give you 4 examples of how behavioral economics is very applicable to the internet dating industry, and leave you with a couple of our big challenges. So I believe the industry has great potential to really change humanity. I think if we make better matches, and I think we have the potential to make better matches, 20, 30 years away, I think the industry will be entirely morphed and doing a lot more to help people get it together and keep it together. Right now, the reality is that 53% of single people have created a dating profile. And 40% of singles have dated someone that they met online, while only 25% met a first date through a friend, interestingly. These numbers are from Match, by the way, so they might be a little bit biased. But, and also 1 in 6 singles feels addicted to dating. Millennials apparently are 125% more likely to feel addicted to dating than the older generation. But let's go back in time a little bit. You remember the classifieds that you'd look through. If you were looking to date, you would go through a ream of classifieds, personals, to find someone. It was really arduous. And so the first thing that the dating industry did to advance significantly over classifieds was to introduce search. So you could say, I'm interested in someone who has this lifestyle and religion, and things improved dramatically. But then once you found someone, well, you want to talk to them, you want to communicate. So the next big advance over flat, boring classifieds was the introduction of SMS and email and using video even. So we've introduced lots of ways of communicating. But I think the biggest advance that we'll have is compatibility. And this is a nut that we've yet to crack. I mean, companies like eHarmony have done a reasonable job. I mean, they started out with 236 questions to try and get into people. But the science is indeed virgin. It's very early days, and we're not sharing enough data with academics, really. The big hiccup that the industry had in around 2012 was the emergence of freemium, right? So companies like Plenty of Fish emerged and really put a crimper on the industry by not charging. They were largely free. The second big hiccup, and the big disruption, really, was the introduction of mobile. And if you think about it, mobile is a far better experience for anyone who's interested in, staying in sync with a potential suitor. Well, it's important to keep communicating. And so the usage pattern that we've seen is that people have gone from messaging once every couple of days, down to a day, down to every few hours. But with mobile, it seems every few minutes. People really get addicted to internet dating on mobile. So along comes Plenty of Fish. Full disclosure, I worked with Plenty of Fish from 2006 to 2013. Marcus Frind was a quant. He was a true quant. And he engineered a site that could emerge from paid acquisition and be free. He would seed a new city using traditional media even. He would even do paid acquisition, but he did it from a quant's mindset. Very analytical, incredible person to work with. He was a super aggressive competitor. He really wanted to quash the rest of the industry. He wanted to kill it. I mean, he just was very aggressive. But the site was ugly. I tell you, back then, several years ago, I mean, it's quite pretty now. They've done a good job revamping it. But back then, we used to squish all the photographs. Overall, it was pretty ugly. It was very Craigslist, if you like. So it would underpromise and overdeliver. And that, I think, is one of the secrets of the success of Plenty of Fish. But also the behavior. There was a lot going on behind the scenes to help to observe people's behavior. And here's an example. By the way, he wanted $1 billion for Plenty of Fish, and he ended up getting $575 million in 2015. But and actually, right now, you'd think Match, who bought Plenty of Fish, would have heeled down on Plenty of Fish. But they've allowed it to continue. And right now it gets about 90 million visits a month. So it has its place in the ecosystem. And it's really the try before you buy, because they allow a lot of dating sites to run advertising on them. It's actually quite lucrative for them. Match Group, meanwhile, is grown to $1.3 billion in revenue and extremely profitable. And they're growing largely through acquisition around the world. Most of their growth is through international. But why? One of the things that they did right is they bought Tinder some while ago when it was under Hatch Labs. This is Tinder's paid membership growth. This is the rest of the industry. So this is what disruption looks like. It's the Tinderization of the industry, really. And I've got some ideas as to why it resonates so much. We'll cover that in a moment. But in terms of what people spend on dating apps, it's typically about $70 per paying member, with the exception being eHarmony at $130. They're more serious. Less members, they're adding more value, you could argue. People are willing to pay more at the end of the day. So you look at all this and you think, well, people must be pretty happy with dating, but that's not true. Adam Alter did a great presentation at TED, and he said that, you know, we surveyed people, we asked them how they feel after using certain apps, and they feel pretty good after using relaxation, exercise, reading apps. They don't use it that long, 9 minutes a day, but they feel pretty good. They do not feel good about dating, and they do not feel good after using social networking. And they're on these apps for nigh on half an hour a day. It doesn't look too good. And this looks even worse. You know, Consumer Reports did a survey of internet dating users, 115,000 actual users, and I think about 9,000 were mobile app users. Just to give you an overview, these are all the dating companies, all the top dating companies. These are all the attributes that they surveyed for. Red is bad. Green is good. There's one sign of hope here, and that is for Tinder, for value. Everything else, we're bleeding red. People aren't happy. So why are people not very happy? They're frustrated, actually. They understand that they're getting results from dating apps, but they're frustrated. This is an example of one of the extreme apps that we've got in the industry. This is called Hater, and this is for matching people with the things that others hate. There are a lot of these sites. I mean, there's so many different apps. Really, the industry, you know, we've got different niches, different geographics, you name it, we've got an app for it. And most of them are not a critical mass. They're not doing particularly well. In fact, most of them are just hanging on for dear life. It's a very good time to buy a dating app at this stage. It's not worth building one because there's so many of them for sale. What is economics? Well, economics, apparently, is optimization plus equilibrium, according to Richard Thaler. So what is behavioral economics? Behavioral economics does something special. It recognizes that people suck at math, for one thing. We suck at math. We're not that rational. Economics assumes that we're rational, but behavioral economics observes the reality, and the reality is that we're predictably irrational, in fact. This is a book by Dan Ariely, Predictably Irrational, very good book. Behavioral economics really takes into account bias, and that we think and we make decisions using heuristics, which are essentially rules of thumb. I've got a couple of slides here on heuristics. Email me if you'd like a copy of the presentation, by the way. But let's talk about user behavior. I'm going to go into 4 examples very quickly of how user behavior, how behavioral science is very applicable to internet dating. The first one is that less is more. Dan Ariely. So back in 2004, I was a VP at Cupid.com, and my CEO said, go visit this guy at MIT. He wants us to share data with him. And it was Dan Ariely back in 2004. And he told me one of them, a few things he told me about that really resonated that I remember is halo effect. He told me about halo effect. Now, and this is Dan. He's quite a character. Dan, so halo effect is basically that your judgments of a person's character can be influenced by your overall impression of them, right? So there are things that will be missing from your spectrum that you can pull on to judge someone, but you'll tend to, if you like someone, you'll tend to think highly of them and just give them the benefit of the doubt. That's really what halo effect is about. And this is very applicable to internet dating in terms of the profile lengths. So we've got to optimize just how much do we extract from people? How long should profiles be? If they're too long, then people act eliminatory. They tend to want to get people out of their search set. And so it actually works against the metrics of a dating site to make these profiles too long. Shorter profiles are better. The trick is having just enough. And to include the showstopper criteria, which are things like, do you want to have kids? Do you want to get married? Are you married? Do you have kids? These are showstopper criteria. But the main thing that dating sites endeavor to do is get people out on a date. The trick is doing it as simply as possible. The second example is from Plenty of Fish. And the key message here is to tailor the experience, right? So Plenty of Fish generally is for long-term focused relationships. And we have a saying that men lie about wanting a long-term relationship and women lie about wanting a short one. And this is something we observed. And the search behavior on Plenty of Fish has been kind of... here's what happens. If you're a guy and you go on Plenty of Fish and you say, in your profile, I'm interested in a long-term relationship, but then you proceed to search for a short-term relationship, a casual relationship, then the database will morph around you and will only show you women who are also interested in a casual relationship, right? The woman who is actually only interested in a long-term relationship will not come up in your search set. And so we protect the interests of the women who are interested in long-term relationships in this way. And this is very good for the health of the site. This delivers value. Number 3, deep understanding. It pays to have deep understanding of your users. You can deliver more value and extract more dollars on that basis. Here's an example. So we noticed that some people give virtual gifts to themselves. And the reason they do that is to make themselves look more popular. So one of the things that Plenty of Fish introduced a few years ago, several years ago actually, is the Serious Member level. And this is what you get for the Serious Member membership, a badge on your profile for $10 a month, no less. And that's it. Nothing else. All you get is the badge. Amazing. I mean, the whole site was free, and then they introduced this. Marcus introduced this, and it worked out quite well. $6 a month on a one-year basis. So the fourth example, the key message here is focus on System 1. Keep things simple. I was studying at London School of Economics on their executive MSc Behavioural Science course, which I highly recommend, by the way. And I was asking myself, why is it that Tinder did so well versus Hot or Not? Hot or Not came years before Tinder. And they used to grade people. You basically say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hot is this person, right? And the point of realization that I had is that Tinder is very shareable and fun. It's a game, really, but what it is very clearly is System 1. Daniel Kahneman wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow, and let me explain about thinking fast and slow. System 1 is fast, it's unconscious, it's intuitive, it's emotional, and System 2 is conscious. And Hot or Not really was in the conscious System 2 thinking area. So just by having to grade people 1 to 10, that put it into System 2. System 1 was unconscious, and this is Tinder territory. Swipe left, swipe right. Swipe left, swipe right. There's no thinking. It's purely emotional. It's your reaction in the instant, your unconscious reaction. So it's important to design for simplicity on mobile, is the key message. Don't make them think. Get to your users on an emotional level, don't make them think. This is a great book by Steve Krug, by the way. Really, people are moving more towards images, firmly in System 1, really. Generation Z, look at your kids, age 1 to 20, they're not texting. They're looking at video, and they're looking at photographs and images, and they're communicating and telling stories through photographs and images. So there are two key challenges that our industry has, the internet dating industry, and that is, number 1, we have the limited information problem. That means that people don't really self-describe very well, and they don't really know what they want. So we've done an awful lot with very little. I think the trick is looking at behavior. People will tell you everything if you only observe. And when you look at their behavior, like, for example, with Plenty of Fish looking at the search behavior, that's very rudimentary. There's a lot more we could do to look at behavior and look into other apps and other camps to really look what people are thinking in the moment and their preferences and their character traits. I think if we can bring this together, we can solve this problem, which is actually the solution to the second problem, which is the continuity problem. The other problem that we have is if we do a good job, we wave goodbye to our users. We send them off on a happy relationship, and the quicker we do that, the less money we make. So if you think about the incentive base of the dating industry, it's rather broken in that respect. But in the long term, I think we have the real opportunity to take more information, more behavioral information, and not only help people get it together and find the one, find a partner, but help them keep it together as well. I think if we have more behavioral information, we can see the areas of compatibility, and we can see the areas where they're not compatible and help them along the way to be aware of those areas of incompatibility and hopefully have a longer, better, more wonderful relationship. Overall, I think the future's bright. Thank you very much. I'm Mark Brooks, and you can contact me at markbrooks.info. Thank you very much.